that rang home to what it is that I wanted to say today. Um, I preached a message called "It's in the Bag," and when you said what you said about things can happen in your life, you think you deal with them, but really you just break off a little piece and you put it in a bag. Situations can happen in your life that just completely unravel you for who you think you are. And oftentimes when we find ourselves in a situation that this is who I am, this is who I am. So if someone asks you who you are, you could explain to them who you are, you could tell them why you're the way that you are, and you could stand strong on it until something unravels all of that. And when something unravels, it could be anything. It could just be life. It could just be a relationship. It could be anything, change of job. It could be, your sister. It could just be anything, move into another state. But life happens, and it happens quickly. And that's something that we do not have control over. And finding ourselves in these broken places with all of these pieces to deal with, if you don't give those pieces back to the owner, because we belong to him. Mm-hmm. So if you take those pieces and you just keep putting them in a bag somewhere, you're going to drag them around, like the bag lady song. You just got all of this stuff, and you can't figure out why your prayers, why you can't, I'm praying, I'm crying, I'm spitting, I'm rolling on the floor. I show up at church, I'm part of this, I'm that, and nothing seems to be coming through. You can't seem to get a breakthrough. Oftentimes it's because we are in a broken place, but because we've already defined ourselves of who we are and what we're going to be, and this is what it's going to look like. When God is shifting and moving and he's taking that foundation and he's directing you in other places, you can't seem to get there. Why? Because you're so busy stuck over here. There is a difference between God giving you purpose and what it is that he's told you to do. When God gives you purpose, you have to walk through the process. And in that process, you will be broken. You will be unraveled. Things will happen to you and you can't understand why they're happening to me. This is happening to me. You're talking to me like this? You're dealing with me like this? The one thing that you'll get from me, as Denisha says, is I can give you scripture all day. I stay in here. These 66 don't change. But oftentimes when we're walking through this life and we're doing our day to day, we can't remember nothing that said in here. We know what it says. We know, we understand that this is our God. But on the day to day, when life is just beating you up, when your husband doesn't come home, when your children are cursing, they all got a secret Facebook page. I got a 6-year-old because I'm not dealing with that. I won't be sitting here. But life will happen to you. Life will put you in a broken place, whereas you feel as if anyone knows that I'm broken, then I'm not who I say I am. For me, I'll take you on the journey of who I thought I was. I've always been strong. I've always been resilient. That I still am. I always knew I belonged to God. I still belong to him. But I was mean. Mean on a whole nother level. Don't say anything. I'm from New York and I fought every day. I didn't take anything from anybody. Educated, worked in the corporate world, worked with some great people. People in the music industry were my friends, but I was always a lady. I always remained who I thought I was. The things that were important to me were the things that I protected. I protected my mom, I protected my dad, I protected my sister, and I have sisters and brothers, and I have people who are close to me, but those were the things. Family was important to me. I lived in New York City all my life, but I wasn't a partier, I wasn't a drinker, none of that stuff. It just didn't interest me because I didn't want anything to have control over me that I wasn't able to get back. Who I am, my name, who I am, the name that was given to me, the child that God gave my parents, I'm proud of that person. And I don't want to tear away any of that. So integrity is something that was important to me. When someone says my name, regardless if it's 10 years from now, regardless if you walk out of this room and said someone, you see me on Facebook, I want you to say, I heard her. And, she's the same person, looks like, she's who you are is who you're created to be. But you have to learn how to walk in it, even when you're broken. Within a 4-year span, I lost my father, I lost my sister at the beginning of 1 year, and my mother at the end of the other year, at the end of the same year. And as I posted on Facebook the other day, it was confusing to me of how the sun came up the next morning. Now, to someone else sitting here who may have parents or may have people that you hold dear, whoever that person is, you may not be able to grasp that. But when you feel that all of who you are is connected to someone, when that's taken away, what do? You're broken. You're unraveled. Because I can tell you, the day after my mother died, I remember sitting in my living room, because I had been sitting in the same place, and I saw the sun go down, and I cried myself to sleep, must have fell asleep and woke back up. And when that sun was coming up, I was angry. I was thinking, how in the world are you going to let the sun come up today? And he said, because you belong to me. I gave you the Effie, but you belong to me. You cannot allow your existence in who you are to be so deep rooted in someone, even your mother, that you forget who you belong to. I have a group, and the group is called Daughters of the King. People say, why? Oh, that's so cute. That's so, It's not about being cute. You know what it's about? Because when you begin to unravel, when you can't seem to get it together, when your bank account is on negative, when your child needs new shoes, when your gas is on E, when the change in the pocketbooks don't seem to add up, you got to know who you belong to. Because if you don't, if you're looking for man to help you, if you're looking for man to make it better for you, not going to happen. A friend will give you some money, a friend will supply some needs, but ultimately, if you rely on that, you'll be let down. You'll be that person sitting on that couch, pissed off of why the sun came up. People were calling me and say, Angie, I really want to, you can't tell me anything. There's nothing you can say to me today. I'm mad. I am mad. They were scared I was going to fight, but I'm mad. I'm angry. And what I did at that time is I took a whole bunch of bricks and I just started doing this. And then I was on my grind. I didn't have the best car, but I had a good job. I had paychecks, and that's when, you didn't do direct deposit. I guess you could have, but I was funny about my money, so I needed to give me my check. I worked 2 to 3 jobs. I used to take my check and I used to put them in my drawer. I had my overtime checks. I used to, I made good money. I worked overtime and I was killing myself. Just work. There was nothing else. Work and, who I was going to be. I design clothes, so I'm going to be a designer and, I'm just doing this for now. That was my plan. I'm going back to New York because I lived in Virginia at the time. I'm going back to New York, and this is what I'm going to do. This is who I'm going to be. Anything that got in the way, love, relationships, anything, you confused because this is who I am. Did I not tell you what my plan was? I hurt people. I stepped over situations. I blocked my own blessings because of the simple fact that I was broken and unraveled. I had all these pieces. I was just angry because I was a family kid. So for my aunt, my uncle, my mom, my dad, my sister, it was like, what are you doing to me? You're leaving me here by myself. And then I started going through the pages of my life, and I realized you've always been resilient. You've always stood up when no one else would stand up. And you always did it with integrity. And you always relied on who you belong to. You didn't rely on just who you thought you relied on your mother, for your strength and for, the things that you needed. You thought you relied on your father to give you that, because I was a daddy's girl. You thought you relied on your sister who gave me my first lipstick, my first pair of heels, my first this, my first that. You thought you relied on those, and that's who, that was my circle. But when you took it all away and I was standing there, what did I have? In my brokenness, I had to realize who I belonged to. Mm-hmm. So in your brokenness, you must remember who you belong to. It's okay for you to struggle. It's okay for your husband not to be okay. It's okay for your kids to get purple when they know they're supposed to get green. It's okay when it's okay when you realize that you've spoiled your child too much. It's okay when you realize that you've worked so hard for your husband and your children that at the end of the day there's nothing left. That was me. There was nothing my child or my husband needs. Everybody knows if I'm going somewhere, I'm gonna leave everything that's imaginable, But I realize at the end of some of these situations, I'm left undone. I can't even enjoy where I am because I'm undone. So your superwoman may not look like my superwoman. I tell people all the time, honey, if you get a look at this cape, it is tattered, tore up. Good thing I can sew. It's patched up, beat up, worn, but I still got it on. Mm-hmm. And the reason why is because I know who I belong to. So whatever situation I'm faced with, whatever comes my way, Denisha will tell you, I'm ready. I'm not going to sit down. I'm not going to be broken into all of these pieces and keep putting stuff in bags because I have to carry those bags. Mm-hmm. Life is just that simple. The Word of God always tells us and directs us in a manner that we often don't want to deal with. We know we're not supposed to, kill nobody. We know you're not supposed to sleep with nobody's husband. We know we're not supposed to steal. But there's so many other good things in there. I think of the story of Ruth. I think about the way that Mary had to go through. I think about just the different women in the Bible and how they must have felt undone, broken, because they had no control over that. I think about Jesus. Can you imagine having the power to just say, you know what, I'm not going to the garden. I know that was the plan, but I'm just not going. You mean to tell me y'all can't stay up an hour? Y'all can't I just say, can you watch? Can you not do that for an hour? Can you not pray for an hour? What can you do? So, and can you imagine having the power to know what's happening and what's going to happen? But when you know who you belong to and when you realize there's a plan for your life, you follow through. The follow through is not about taking all these little pieces and trying to define who you are and trying to prove to people who you are. Coach D posted something last week, I think it was, that just said she was just going to be her. And she was okay with it. She she did a video and she was like, okay, this is just me. And the video was impactful. I loved it. I've watched it a couple of times. Right? Yeah. But she wasn't all dolled up. She wasn't all, her curls were cute. The curls were cute. And she had a moisturizer. Her face was shiny. But somebody in that moment needed just that. Yeah. I don't care where you are in life. I don't care what it is that you think you need to get to the next level. All you need is trust and belief and faith to know that God has you here in this moment for a reason. You do what you do and you go along this journey for a reason. We often feel like I don't deserve this. Did Jesus deserve it? I mean, he gave his life for us, And when you look at, I was watching the end of Passion of the Christ the other day, and I do that to myself so I can sit there and blubber. I don't know, but the thought in my mind was, wow, and I've messed up so many times. I've come undone and broken and realized in a moment, you know what? But you're healed. You know why? Because I'm still able to stand up. In my prayer, if you get me going, she'll tell you, you'll hear me say, stand up. I'm somewhere else at this point. It's because in you dwelleth no good thing. In you dwelleth no good thing. So what you need is for him to stand up on the inside of you when you jelly back, when you can't do nothing. Because in you dwelleth no good thing. We think we're doing right. We think, you might not cuss no more. You might not snatch people up no more. You may, stop laughing, G. You may not give people the deadly look, right? But if it's in your head, it's still in you.
Yep.
What I've started doing is stop saying, and my husband kind of really got me to saying this, is, oh, they better be glad I'm saved, or if you'd have got Angie 10 years ago, I bet you wouldn't be standing there now, and I just have a look, that's just like, and you tell people, well, I'm not the person I used to be, or you better be glad I'm not. That means you still holding on to her.
Yeah, that's so true.
Let her go.
That's so true.
Because I'm happy who I am now. I'm happy I don't snatch up people.
Mm-hmm.
I'm happy that I don't just yoke up people. I'm happy that the girl I threw down the stairs didn't die, because I'd be in jail. I'm glad of all these things. I'm glad that I just didn't take the time to cuss out the lady. Just 2 years ago in Walmart, here I am with my child, and we're looking for toys, and it was just a great time. The music was going, and it was just a wonderful thing. Wonderful thing. Lady walks past me, and I'm not going to tell you what she said, but it wasn't something she was supposed to say to me. And in that moment, I locked my hands to the what do you call it? The shopping cart, and tears were just rolling down my face. My brother-in-law is coming up the aisle, and he's like, "What's wrong?" I couldn't get it out. Because in me dwelleth no good thing. And I was praising God on the inside, because the old me, it would have took 2.5 seconds. I would have been, I wouldn't even thought about what I was going to do. And I was holding on to that cart, and, tears, my face is red, tears are, because I realized that she was gone, that she had died. I wasn't holding on to who I thought I was. Mm-hmm. And I was who he created me to be. Mm-hmm. And that was a mother. That was an example to the young ladies who was in that aisle. That was an example to the lady that God sent down the aisle and said, don't let nobody take your joy. Mm-hmm. God will send you somebody in the midst of your own storm. Mm-hmm. Because I could have made a mess out of that. My husband could have looked on Facebook and said, is that my wife? Fighting? My child could say, Mama. And you would have to know my child to understand. That's how she'd do it. She'd make you feel, Mama. Mama, you fighting? So I could have made a mess out of that. So what I want to stick with you with today, hope that you get what I'm saying, is that be who God created you to be. Forget about who you think you are. Mm-hmm. And when you let go of all of that stuff, watch how stuff start happening. Watch how your life starts to change. Don't be embarrassed. I had somebody that I met in Publix about 4 weeks ago. We were just having good conversation. Her eyes were full of tears the entire time we were talking. And I just took her hand and I said, you got to trust God, whatever it is. The lady burst into tears. We end up outside the Publix, and I didn't ask her. All I did was pray with her. So I gave her my phone number. She called me the other day, and she said, well, I'm moving out of Jacksonville. She said, I'm not good at keeping in touch with people, but you changed my life. You made me realize that I am worth it. Now what? I don't even remember what I said. So when God makes you who he created you to be, you can't be afraid to reach out to somebody. You can't be afraid to tell somebody you love them. You can't be afraid to say, I am completely broken. I've made a mess of this. I need help. But you got to surrender it all to him. You can. You can't hold on to all of those pieces. You can't keep all that crap in your bag. Mad at your sister, mad at your brother, mad at your cousin because she didn't show up, all kind of foolishness. No one has time for that. Yeah. I'm almost 50 years old, and when I tell people that I was holding on to all of this stuff, and when I let it go, I'm in different situations and, surroundings, and people are like, wow, you've changed. I'm so glad that I did. Mm-hmm. And he's still breaking me. He's still chipping away, and I'm so glad. I realized through the hard times, I give him praise. Mm-hmm. Because then he's not finished with you yet. Someone very close to me says, and I want you to do it, take your hand and touch your head. Do you feel a crown? Then he's not finished with you yet. Mm-hmm. You didn't make it over yet. Do you feel it? So when the hard times come and when you realize that, hey, this is so not what I thought it was going to be, give him glory. Give him glory. When I'm stuck in traffic, my husband is a pastor, and he's doing well with this stuff now. But that used to just, let him be late for something or let him be in traffic. And I would say, you know what? He's probably saving us from an accident.
I know.
Mm-hmm. And I say it all calm, just, babe, we could be in an accident, or he'll say, I'm just going to get off. Don't get off. Stay right here. Stay right here, because this is where we're supposed to be. Mm-hmm. So in the small things, give him thanks.
Yeah.
In the little things, give him thanks. When I wake up in the morning, I say, thank you, Lord, for letting me live. Thank you for the use of my limbs and activity of my eyes. Why? Because somebody woke up this morning and can't move. Somebody just had a stroke. Just as we're sitting here, someone just had a heart attack. Someone just died. Mm-hmm. Someone just lost their sight. The last thing they seen was yesterday. Mm. So we have to learn to give him praise and glory for the small things, the things that we just overlook. Mm-hmm. One thing that I wrote down today that I would like you to write down, and I want you to remember this, and I want you to give it your own definition, is as we press through broken places, we must be careful that distraction doesn't become stronghold. As we press through broken places, we must be careful that distraction doesn't become stronghold. As we press through broken places, we must be careful that distraction doesn't become stronghold. And let me explain what that means for me. And I'll repeat it if anybody needs me to. What that means for me is when I'm going through, I can't forget my purpose. Because we're chosen. You're chosen. When things happen to you, just like Job, we're chosen. Just like how Moses started off. You asked Moses what he had in his hand. He told him it was a stick. It was far more than a stick. So when we're going through, don't be distracted. Don't be distracted by the pain. Don't be distracted by the ill looks. Don't be distracted by the lack of. Don't be distracted about the abundance of. Don't be distracted about all the blessings. Don't be distracted about all the praise. Don't be distracted about anything. Because see, struggle is not always just a bad thing. That's what I'm realizing too. I was faced with a situation with someone who has all kind of money and she just spent it all kinds of ways. But it has a stronghold over her. So she's struggling through that thing. So struggle doesn't always look like struggle on this side. Brokenness doesn't always look like brokenness on this side. And if you get distracted with it, what will happen is it becomes a stronghold. Yeah. And now, when a stronghold has nothing to do with that bag you've been putting stuff, a stronghold, you're going to have to drag it. You're going to have to get on your knees to break it. Mm-hmm. A stronghold is not easily, you can't just release it. It's not like, okay, I'm just not going to do that no more. A stronghold is, okay, no one knows I smoke weed because I go to the park and smoke it. No one knows that I do this because I do this. But if that's not who you say you are, and that's not what you say you do, then it's a stronghold. No. One thing I've always loved about Denisha is she is who she is. She'll tell me in a minute, no, I don't want to do that. Or no, no, I'm not doing that. I say, are you okay? Yeah, I'm fine. So and so. Or, I'll call her and fuss at her. Did you get any sleep? Because she don't sleep sometimes. But as you do, as you go, as you move, as you live, you have to realize there's purpose. There's purpose. Forget who the world thinks you are. Forget who you think you are. Push through with purpose. So 2 Corinthians 10:4-5 say, for the weapons of our warfare are not carnal, but mighty through God to the pulling down of strongholds. So you have to realize when stuff is when stuff is happening to you, when your husband's pissed you off, when your relationship is not going so good, when you think you're communicating well and the person that you're talking to is looking at you like you're crazy, it has nothing to do with you. Mm-hmm. It has nothing to do with them. It's a stronghold. And it's when the devil decides that I'm gonna mess with your mind. Let me show you. Has someone ever said something to you and you smiled and and then you get home and you're like, wait a minute.
Yes.
Wait a minute. That's just the devil. That's the devil messing with you to show you. What I stopped doing is I stopped looking at other people. Well, why were you offended by that? Why did that bother you? Because to me, when I stopped looking at other people and started looking back at myself, that man in the mirror, Michael Jackson, that lets you see who you are. And it lets you see what bothers you and what don't bother you. Because see, like for me, like what she said, I love her. She knows that. She can come to my house anytime, right? But I am who I am regardless of who she is. You have to be who God created you to be. And whether or not I talk to her for 2 months or 5 months or 6 months or whatever it is, it never happens. But it doesn't matter. When you love someone, just like you're supposed to love yourself and just like you're supposed to love and honor God, right? Then nothing should change you. Nothing should just knock you off your path. Because what happens is you get distracted and then there's strongholds. Strongholds, things that you can't get rid of. I always tell people, do not make a permanent decision on a temporary situation. Mm-hmm. That's right. Never make permanent decisions on temporary situations. Mm-hmm. Some situations you're just not going to be able to shake. Some things are just part of who you are. You got that uncle, you love him to death, but now he's an alcoholic. Mm-hmm. And he shows up at everything. And he cut up. Your aunt is embarrassed. The kids still buy him Jordan, so he's fly when he come. He still look good. But by the time he finished going back and forth to his car, when he come back, he gonna cut up, and the family reunion gonna be ruined. And he gonna do it every year. But you love him the same.
Yeah.
You love him the same because everything. This is something that I always say in my ladies' laugh. It's so not about you. Mm-hmm. I was counseling someone a couple of weeks ago. She crying, snot. I let her finish, and I was like Miss Coral on War Room. So when are you gonna tell me what's going on?
Right. Did all of that.
All of that, because I hear you talking about other people. What about you? What did you do? What's going on with you? Why is this bothering you so much? What I realize is when you ask yourself, why did this unravel me like that? Why am I broken? And oftentimes we walk around like we're broken and we're really not.
Right. Just trying to have a problem.
You're just trying to have something wrong. But when we realize that the weapons are not things that you can always see. Mm-hmm. These are spirits. These are things that just happen on the inside. These are things that we let get on the inside of us. The friend or the person that you know has offended you. I'm sorry. If you offended me, then I'm going to say, listen. That didn't go so well. Now, that's my best way of doing it. That didn't go so well. That just didn't sit well with me. Explain to me what you meant by that. Oftentimes, that question right there, explain to me what you meant by that, will give you clarity. Mm-hmm. And take you from this spot that you're getting ready to run to be so broken up and chipped up and can't move. Don't be broken if you don't have to be.
That's good.
Don't be broken if you don't have to be. It's not a place of safety. Mm-hmm. It's a place of vulnerability. Broken is just you're vulnerable because usually you walk around looking broken. You let your friends know you're broken.
Yes,
You're weeping and you're broken. You post on Facebook, I'm going to sign off for a few days. I had a friend that's done that through the years, and normally, I'm always the friend that'll call and I'll say, what's the matter? What's the matter? Let me pray with you. What's the matter? So this time I didn't do it. Guess what she did? She called me. She's like, hey. I was like, hey. You know, whole conversation, she hadn't said anything. Well, I'm gonna sign off of Facebook for a few days. I said it's probably best. It's probably best. And she said, huh? And I said, it's probably best. I said, you need to realize, darling, that every time something go wrong, where are you running to?
Yeah.
You know, where are you running to?
That's so true.
I said, now, like I tell you, I said, last time I seen you was about 2 years ago. And I told you, I'm not telling you got to do what I do, you know. But if you believe in the tree guards, then whatever the tree guards tell you, that's what you need to follow. Because you're not following anything now. So when something happens, you're completely broken and completely disengaged, completely. You can't do that.
Mm-hmm.
You got to have something that holds you. Something's got to hold you. 2 Corinthians 10, 4 and 5. I have one more thing to say and then I'm going to wrap up. I wrote, a small distraction, which is just a bump in the road, can become a stronghold for the devil. He takes that opportunity to say, you know what? She's looks like she's moved. It doesn't look like she's got it she's got a hold of it this time. She hasn't asked God why yet. She hasn't asked him for, so you know what, this is my time. That's what people do. That's what, I don't know if you've I don't know how many of you are single, but sometimes when you're single, what happens is let one guy mess up. And honey, sure as your name is whoever it is, somebody else is going to call and be like, you want to go out for lunch?
That's right.
You want to
Smell in there.
Yep.
Yeah. And that's the devil.
Mm-hmm.
You got to see it.
Yes,
and it's
it is.
probably the person that you wanted to be with anyway, but now you're just with this person and that's just where you are.
Yeah.
And you got to say to yourself, okay, God, like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
I'm telling you, I have asked myself so many times, like, okay, what's going on? Because that's how I talk. I'm like, okay, now, what's going on?
Right.
And you got to wait for the answer. Don't
You
make
have
up
to
crap
wait
in
for
your
the
head.
answer. Yes.
Don't make up stuff. Don't look for the burning bush. Well, this person at the Walmart said, no, hear it from him.
Right.
And he'll let you know it's him.
Yeah.
He'll send somebody to you that has no idea of what you're going through, what you're dealing with, and they'll tell you exactly what you need to know. Go to the person that is not going to be that, oh, yeah, you should have cussed him out. Don't do that. Mm-hmm. Don't go to the person that says, you know what, you are so right. I know you say, but it's no. Either you are or you're not. Either you're hot or you're cold. That's how it goes. Another thing that I wrote down is in scripture we say that there's I'll say it this way. I'll say it in my own words. When you've been broken and you've been hurt and you've been hurt over and over and over and over and over again, don't look for the peace to come from the other person. Because you may never get it. You may never get a sorry. You may never get, I apologize. You may never get an explanation of why he walked out. You may never get an explanation of why your sister just doesn't want to be bothered with you. You may never get an answer of why my kid just won't do right. You may never get a reason. You just may never get an answer for why this hasn't happened for me. You may never get an answer of why this is happening to me. You gotta release that stuff, and you just gotta continue to stay focused on what it is that's important. And what's important is your relationship with him. Yeah. What I've realized is I stopped trying to fix stuff. I stopped trying to explain to people why, who, what. No, I'm gonna pray about it, and if it's to be discussed, I'm gonna tell you why I'm praying about it. And my prayer is this. You can't fix things for people, and when we're looking for an apology, you're rolling your eyes at your sister because you really want her to apologize. Let it go.
Right.
Because when it's time to apology, it's for her to apologize to you, she will. Mm-hmm. But still love her. Still go out to coffee, have ice cream, because you know what's going to happen? He'll deal with her. Yes, he deals with the saved, the unsaved, the clean, the unclean. We belong all to him. Mm-hmm. So believe me, and everybody says, and this is something that I tell, my husband laughs at me because I say, thus saith Angela, in the midnight hour when you know you've done wrong, when you know that you've treated people wrong, and you know that you've not followed the path that you should, he deals with you. He talks to you. He talks to the alcoholic. He talks to the crackhead. He talks to the heroin addict. He talks to them all. So in the midnight hour, you just pray, God, allow your still voice to touch their heart. Pray for them. Ask for healing for them. Rather than look for that apology. So in your brokenness, I say to you, don't be distracted. Don't think that what's happening to you is just the end of the world, because it's not. It's part of your story. It's part of your journey. Start writing it down and watch how good it comes out. Yeah. Chapter 2 got to be better than chapter 1, because better is an ending of the thing than its beginning. That's it.